Colorless, Tsukuru, Tazaki, and His Years of Pilgrimage by Haruki Murakami. So every time I finish a Murakami books, it's my new favorite, and this is no different. So this is the fourth Murakami I've read, and this one is a bit different. It's more similar to Norwegian Wood for me. A man, sort of a middle-aged man, reflecting back on his youth, without the magical realism that his other books like Kafka on the Shore and Wind Up Bird Chronicle have. This one's very straightforward. It does kind of have a bit of a mystical element, but is not really a part of the story, and is not really real in the way that it is in his other books. So the title of this one is very, it seems weird at first, but makes a lot of sense. So it's about this guy, Tsukuru Tazaki. Tsukuru Tazaki. I think I'm mispronouncing that right. So that's the main character. His family name's Tazaki. Tazaki, I guess Tazaki. And they've sort of anglicized or westernized the names. So that's his name. Tsukuru means, it's his given name, it means to make. It can also mean to create things, but the way it's the character that's used to spell his name is to make things. So he is someone who makes things, physical things, not creates, but like he's an engineer basically. He works for a railway company. The colorless part is important because he had this really tight group of friends when he was in high school. There was 5 of them. The whole book it's foundational to the book, this group of friends. And each of their last names had color in their name. And so they all got different nicknames, like Aka for red, Ao for blue, Kuro for black, and Shiro for white. So were his 4 friends, and he did not have a color. His last name Tazaki, there's no color involved. So he sees himself as the colorless one, the one who is sort of an empty vessel, not a blank canvas, because that can have positive connotations, but he is colorless. He has sort of no role in the group, and he sees that as the reason why he gets ejected from the group. And there are 2 other characters. Haida, who has the color gray in his name, is also in this story, and Midori Kawa, who like Midori green. So there's a number of characters with color names, and he is the colorless one. And then the second part of the title, His Years of Pilgrimage, refers to a piece of music composed by Hungarian composer Franz Liszt, which is very sort of not integral to the plot, but comes up again and again. Murakami must be a big music fan, because he's always putting music into his books. So there's a piece of music from a composition, The Years of Pilgrimage by Franz Liszt, called Le Mal de Pays, which is French. I would translate it directly as homesickness, but in this book it's described as, or translated as, a sort of a depression, a longing, a melancholy feeling. And so his Years of Pilgrimage is sort of this colorless Tsukuru Tazaki's his longing for a past, his sickness for a homesickness for the home being this time in the past, this melancholy he feels for this moment in time that he when he was happy. So like I said, he's got there's this group of 5 friends. They all have color names except for him, and they're all super close. 2 boys, 2 girls, which kind of sounds like it's going to spell trouble, but they sort of agree to never have any sort of relationships with each other. Strictly platonic, but they're just a great group of friends. They complement each other totally. They do volunteer work and do great things, and it's just like the perfect teenage movie. Nothing goes wrong. They're totally happy. They all grow up, and when they're going to college, they all stay in their city of Nagoya and go to college there, except for Tsukuru. He decides he's always wanted to be an engineer and work on railway stations and build stations. So he goes to a specialized school in Tokyo. He still tries to come back, and every time he's in Nagoya, meet with them and sort of keep this group together, but he very much took the first step to be the one to sort of fragment this ultimate group. And at one point he goes back to Nagoya. He's 20, and he can't get a hold of any of his friends. Apparently they're out. He's trying to call them, and he can't get a hold of them. Eventually Ao calls him up and says, "Hey, don't call us anymore. We're not talk. Don't ever talk to us again. We're not going to see you again. We're cutting you off completely." And he says something like, "You know why? You know why we're doing this," or something. Suggests that Tsukuru should understand why this is happening, and Tsukuru's just totally blindsided by this, and so just sort of okay, and hangs up, and that begins a 16-year gap in which he does not speak to these people. And so the next, I think, 6 months of his life, he grapples with intense feelings of suicide and death, and all he can think about is death, because he's just been totally and seemingly randomly and absolutely suddenly cut off from these people that were so integral and so important to him. And so he goes about his life. He never really has any other friends beside them. He does have this one friend in the middle of the book, this guy Haida, who's a few years younger than him. And we never even find out why, but at one point Haida cuts himself off from Tsukuru and sort of lies about, "Oh, I'm going home for holidays, but I'll be back in a few weeks," and never returns to Tokyo. And so this second friend, this only other friend that he has, totally cuts himself off from Tsukuru, and Tsukuru just assumes that, well, there's something wrong with me, or I'm the colorless one, no one would want to be with me. I guess this is just meant to be. And it's very sad. Haida also shares a story. So there's a story within this story about this character Midori Kawa, who meets Haida's father at this springs way out in the mountains somewhere. And this Midori Kawa seems to have the ability to see sort of people's auras. Each person seems to have their own color. And there's this weird thing about death, and that if you have this ability, then you know that you are going to die at a certain point, but you can pass this ability on to someone else, in which case you will not die, but then they will die at a certain point. I don't really understand it. It's very much an interlude, this story about Haida's father and Midori Kawa. Anyways, back to the sort of present tense. Tsukuru is 36 years old. He's living in Tokyo alone. His father has died and left him enough money that he can live comfortably. He's working his job. He enjoys his job. But like I said, he's got no friends. He's very alone. And I don't want to apply too much of my life to this book, but I think reading this, I read it in a different way than a lot of other people read it, because I saw so much of myself in this book. This book, well, we'll get to it, but he's 36 years old, and he meets this girl, I should say woman, she's 38, and he sort of falls in love with her. Now, I don't know if this is just Murakami's writing, but the love was explicitly, it wasn't shown, it was explicitly told that his feelings for this girl, this woman, he seems very similar to a lot of other Murakami protagonists, where he seems very passive and emotionless. I don't know if Murakami's good at expressing emotions in his main characters, but because he is colorless, Tsukuru Tazaki, he does seem very emotionless, but he seems to love this woman for whatever reason. Like I said, it's a weird one. Anyway, so this woman Sarah, they date a few times, and it's kind of weird. Like he refers to her as his girlfriend, but he also refers to himself as single within the same conversation. So I don't know if it's a Japanese thing where you can have multiple girlfriends and boyfriends and be dating multiple people while still being single, which I guess makes sense. I don't know, maybe it's just in the weird culture I live in, where it feels like if you have someone you're dating, that means you're dating, you're no longer single. Anyways, so they hook up, but Sarah doesn't want to go further in the relationship until he deals with she senses this sort of emotional trauma that he's got built into him. And he reveals to her about his past and about this friend group, and she says, "You need to contact these people and clear this all up." And so she goes and uses Facebook and the internet to Google and get the information on all these people. This book was published in 2014, so it's one of his most recent books, which is the reason why I picked this one up. There was some other Murakami books I wanted to read, but this one I wanted to read a more modern one with stuff like the internet. Now, there's not a lot of cell phones and smartphones in this because, like, 2014. I mean, in Japan, you would think we'd be getting more into it, but it is like you got to think Murakami himself was born, what, in the 40s. He's fairly old. I'd love to meet or read a younger writer, similar to Murakami. Anyways, so Sarah gets him all the information and says you have to go off and meet all these people and figure out why they cut you off, what's going on with them, and so that's what the second half of the book is this man in his mid-30s going off to meet all of the people that he was really close to and hasn't seen since high school. And like I said, for me, it's been 15 years since I graduated high school. I haven't seen any of them in 15 years, and yet I felt really close to everyone that I went to high school with. I went to a super small high school. I knew everyone. So yeah, a lot of this, like spending 16 years alone and sort of without friends and having like a friend here or there. I don't know. This book felt like it was written for me, which is very strange. I don't know. I'd like to hear other people's opinions on the book, but it was a very personal book for me. Anyway, so it turns out that Shiro, this girl that he's been having these dreams about, these very sexual dreams, where he was with Shiro and Kuro, the two girls from his group, Black and White. But they were always more focused on Shiro, this girl who was seen as a very beautiful. So he obviously had some sort of feelings for her. But it turns out that she has died something like 6 years ago, and it's just really shocked him. He had no idea. And so he goes out and he meets with Ao first, who was like a jock, was super into sports, was like a real people person, was like a pretty like big buff dude. And the book really sort of explains what these kids were like in high school and how Tsukuru's sort of thought of where they would be in the future, and then he actually sees where they are in the future, and each one of them seems totally different than where he would have seen them going. They seem like the same person, they look the same, but that sort of path that they took just sort of knocks him away. So Ao, the big rugby player guy, he has become a salesman for Lexus dealerships. He's sort of like a big, like, successful car salesman. And so he meets with him, and he surprises all these people that he goes to see. And so he really shocks Ao. It's like, it's been 16 years and you show up. And so Tsukuru's like, I just want to know, why did you cut me off? What happened? And then Ao reveals, well, because you raped Shiro. And it just sort of, again, knocks him off his feet. He's like, I did not. I absolutely did not. There's no way I like, what? And because it's been 16 years, I was like, that makes sense to me. Now that I think about it, there's no way it could have been you, but at the time, Kuro was very much on Shiro's side, and they were like, we have to cut you off. You did this horrible thing. She went into lots of details, so we just had to do it. And so they sort of catch up a bit and sort of make up. And it's revealed that he asks, how did Shiro die? She was actually murdered, strangled to death. And so this whole time I'm waiting for the magical realism twist, and I'm like, did he actually rape her, and did he strangle her? Because he's having these sexual dreams with her, but that never comes to fruition. That's not the great word. Anyways, then he next goes to Aka, who had been like the super smart, top grades, like he's gonna go into finance and become like a billionaire or whatever. So Aka is running this sort of weird consulting firm where how do they describe it? He's training corporate warriors, something. It's this sort of wishy-washy, not brainwashing, but they re-education programs to sort of get like a bunch of corpo workers to obey their corporate overlords. I don't know, like the characters in the book are kind of like feel weird about it and gross about it, but that's what he's doing. And again, he reveals, they sort of clear everything up about the past, and they talk, and everything's good. And then he goes to meet Kuro, who was closest to Shiro because they were both girls. So he's like, okay, we're gonna, like, this is the one to sort of clear everything up. and turns out she's living in Finland now. So he takes some vacation time. Luckily, Sarah, his girlfriend, is a travel advisor, or a travel agent. So he flies to Finland. And when he gets there, like, he doesn't announce his arrival. He finds that she's not home. They've gone on holiday for the summer. So he drives out to their cottage, and he meets Kuro. And again, she's super shocked. She reveals that she had been in love with him when they were in high school, and of course he was totally oblivious to this, had no idea. Like, girls who like boys, you have to be very, very explicit and open, because they will have no idea until 16 years later when you tell them in the presence of your husband and 2 kids. And she reveals that she knows that Tsukuru did not rape Shiro, and reveals that Shiro just had sort of a very intense mental illness, and they call it an evil spirit or a demonic spirit, that she was just had so many mental issues, and she was raped and was pregnant and miscarried, and like the trauma of that, she could sense that their group of 5 was splintering and would splinter at some point. And since Tsukuru had already sort of voluntarily broken it by going to Tokyo on his own, he was sort of the scapegoat. And so Shiro attacked him, and maybe really actually believed it was him. And Kuro went along with it because she thought that Tsukuru would have been stronger, and he can sort of survive on his own, whereas Shiro was not, and they needed to cut him off to help Shiro. And Kuro reveals about how, like, all the issues that Shiro had, and how sort of after this she sort of lost her sort of life force, her sort of glow, her zest, and became very subdued. And talked about Kuro's sort of regrets when Kuro left and moved to Finland, leaving Shiro alone. That's how Shiro was strangled and murdered. So yeah, they clear everything up. They have a good hug and a good cry, and he flies back to Tokyo and sort of reflects on everything he's learned, and he feels like he's better now. He's ignored that emotional pain for so long, and now that he's sort of had this closure and met with all these people and explored his past, he feels better for it. And he's thinking about Sarah, and he really wants to propose and marry her. There's this one little caveat where he sort of sees her with a much older man in his 50s. I guess not much older, like 15 years older or whatever. And she seems really happy with him. And he's like, who is this man that she's with? So he calls Sarah up, and he's like, hey, can we meet and talk? Also, I have this weird intuition feeling that you have someone else. Is there someone else? I need to know. I'm deeply in love with you. Let's meet, and we'll talk all about the trip that I had, and we'll hash everything out. And the book ends before that fateful meeting. It ends with him sort of sitting in a railway station, observing the trains, and thinking about himself and his future and his past and everything. So that's the book. I think it's a beautiful one. I want to say it's my favorite right now, but maybe I have recency bias. I did really like Wind Up Bird Chronicle as well. It just makes me want to read Murakami. This one was much shorter. It was a very nice size, very modern. Like I said, it's only 10 years old, 11 years old, 12 years old. Geez, time's going by fast. Yeah, personally, this one really spoke to me. So that was Tsukuru Tazaki, Colorless Tsukuru Tazaki and his Years of Pilgrimage.